After the Lord saved his people from Egypt, the Egyptians, Moses led the people traveling through the desert for 3 days. Couldn't find any water. Then people arrived at a place called Marah. And they found water there successfully, but the water was bitter. They couldn't drink it. They complained to Moses. Moses went off and prayed, looked around, was led to a kind of a tree that made the water fresh. The water was bitter. God himself did magic to change it? No. People found a way to find the water. That's a miracle. People continued traveling through the desert. It was empty. They were traveling and they stopped at a place called Sin. They complained to Moses and Aaron. Why? There was no food, nothing to eat. They complained. We wish the Lord had left us in Egypt. Here you're letting us starve. Moses went off and prayed. The Lord said, I will send food from heaven for all of you. Each day, people must go out, gather enough for that one day. And the next day, enough for that one day. The next, enough for one day. And continuing doing that until the sixth day. They must gather twice for the next day, the Sabbath, Saturday. It was called a day of rest. That night, flocks of birds, quails, birds landed on the ground around the camp. In the morning, dew was there. People saw that. It's white stuff. The sun beat down, dried them out. They picked them up, flakes. Ate some. It was like cake, sweet, made with honey. The Israelites called the sweet food manna. Why? What, the white stuff? I never saw that before. What is it? What is it? So they called it manna. Quails, manna. God sent straight from heaven? No. The birds probably were on a migration, traveling. They landed to rest. Then that area and the trees overnight was cold, cool. Cause the tree to white stuff to kind of come out like sweet sugary things, something like that. In the morning, it dried up, became flakes, and they ate it. Moses said, God has given you food. Eat enough for that day. Don't save anything left over from the night. Some of the people didn't pay attention to Moses. They saved some for overnight. In the morning, the manna changed. It was awful, spoiled, worms, smelled awful. They had collected only what they needed for each day. Remember, Moses told the people, on the sixth day, you must collect twice for the next day, Sabbath. So they added manna in the morning, Sabbath. Food didn't spoil, it was fine. Moses said, today eat. Why? Today is a day to honor the Lord. Some of the people ignored Moses, his order. They didn't collect manna on the seventh day, on the Sabbath. They went out on the Sabbath looking around for manna, couldn't find anything. The Lord, why? They didn't obey Moses. Later, the Lord commanded the Israelites to save some of the manna to be kept for their future generations, so they could see the food that God had provided for them to eat in the desert. The Israelites continued eating manna for the next 40 years. And later, when they went into the country of Canaan, they could grow their own food. It's interesting. For 40 years, the Israelites always had enough to eat. Manna. The Israelites learned God was working, caring for them. Two things that are important. First, the water. It came from the Red Sea. Second, manna. God saved the Israelite people, his people, through water to be close to him. Why? He loved them so much. Same today. Baptism. God saves us through water too. God gives his special gifts. What is it? Grace. It means God's life in us. Baptism, God's grace makes us his children. He wants us to be close to him too. Secondly, manna, bread. The Israelites always had enough to eat each day. Today, God gives food for our tables each day too. And once more, Jesus gives us the Eucharist. God's life in us can grow strong in union with God. Same as manna. The Eucharist is bread from heaven. Isn't that wonderful? Yes.